Hey guys, it's Jason again. Welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to go over how to repair a cut electrical cord. So if you're anything like me, every time you decide to go out and trim your hedges, you take out your old trusty electrical hedge trimmer and go to cutting cords instead of the hedges. Because if you look at our extension cord, I've got cuts all in it. So we're going to go over how to repair this sucker today. There's two routes you can go. If you make a cut near the end, you can just replace the end. Purchase one of these at your local hardware store. Just make sure you know if it's a male or female end. If it's the female end, which typically is going to be a female end, because that'll plug into your appliance. So make sure you get the right end when you go to the hardware store. And if you want to see how to do that, we're going to add a link to that video in the comments below. What we're going to show you today is the second way, and that is if you get a cut more in the body and you don't want to lose a large section of your extension cord. I'm going to show you how to butt splice the body back together. The good thing about this job is there's only a few tools required. The first tool here is just your standard wire tool. The good thing about a tool like this is it's got multiple tasks it'll do. It'll strip the insulation off, it'll cut cord, it'll crimp your butt splice connectors back together. And these are your butt splice connectors. They're color coded depending on the size of the cord. If you've got a 14 or 16 gauge cord like most extension cords, you'll want the red. If it's a little bigger, you'll go up to a blue. The tip you want the red. And then the third tool you want is some splicing tape. You can also use electrical tape, but for outdoor appliances like our extension cord here, I would recommend you go with the splicing tape. It's a little more durable. So I have the extension cord laid out. The first thing you want to do is look back over the cord and find everywhere you cut it. So here I've got 1 cut, 2, 3, 4, 5 cuts, and no more past it. And I have an old splice here from the last time I tried cutting hedges. So what I want to do whenever I splice this back together is I want to remove all those cuts. So I'm going to go back and cut the line here, and I'm going to go ahead and redo this splice while I've got it broken down. So I'm going to cut here and just take this bad section out. So take your wire tool, open it up, and it'll show you where the wire cutter is on the tool. And you just lay the wire in the wire cutter and cut it off. Pretty simple. And we'll do it again here. And get that bad section out. Now that we've removed that, this will be our new cord. Take any kind of a knife you have, a razor blade or anything you can get, and what you want to do is cut back about 3 inches, 2 or 3 inches on your cord. You don't have to do a lot of pressure here. Just make you a nice little cut, and that'll open up your insulation and expose your cord. You want to do this on both sides so that you get all 3 of your cords exposed. And like I said, you don't have to push down real hard. It's nice and easy. If you push down too hard, you'll cut through and get into the insulation on your wires, and you don't want to do that. So just cut them back. Expose your 3 white, black, and green. And whenever you get them cut back like this, you want to cut your whites, blacks, and greens at different levels. And the reason why is once you put your butt connector in them, you don't want all 3 butt connectors to be in the same spot, because then you'll have a big lump. It's best if you have them offset. And that way, once you get it all put back together, you'll have a slimmer profile. So for that reason, we want to cut them back at different lengths. Once again, you take your wire stripper, and it doesn't matter which one you cut back the deepest. Just choose one, cut it back the deepest, take your next one, cut it back about an inch from that. And then you have your third one an inch longer than that. And then just reverse that whenever you go to the other side. So I left my green the longest. I'm going to cut my green back the most on this side. And try to match it up with the other side as best you can. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then we want our whites cut back the same. And then our black one will just be longer. This way, whenever they go back together, see how they line up and be offset from each other. And I'm going to cut this green back just a little more. And then once you know you have them cut back the distance you want cut back, then you take your stripper, wire stripper, and depending on what gauge your extension cord is, this extension cord is a 16 gauge, and if you don't know what gauge it is, it's usually written on the extension cord. So just search along the length of the extension cord, and it'll usually be written in black. It'll say a 16, a 14, a 12, an AWG. And whichever size your extension cord is, this is a 16 gauge. So I want to go to the 16 gauge on my wire stripper. Put the wire in there. And you want to trim back just a little bit. Maybe a little over a quarter inch or so. And just turn that. And what that does, that'll cut the insulation off and leave you with your exposed wire. Okay, so I've completed trimming all the insulation back. I have all the wires cut and prepared, so then our next step is putting on our butt connectors. So to install a butt connector, you just take your wire, and if you see there's a piece of metal inside that, you want the wire to go inside that butt, in that metal. So you just take the wire, install it into the metal, and you'll feel it slide in. If it's not sliding in, you can twist the connector and it'll slide that wire into the metal. Then take your trusty wire crimping tool. And like I said earlier, the tip up here is where the wire crimps, and it's color coded usually. So right here we're using a red butt connector, so we want to use the red connection here. And you slide it right over the tip. Oops. And squeeze. And what you're squeezing on is that metal piece inside the connector. And squeeze it till it clamps down on it. And then you'll see your little crimp in your metal. And then you just want to give it a little snug, a little tug there to make sure that you got it hooked good. Once you get that side done, come the other side. Do the same on that side. Goes in. Take your tool again. Clamp down on your metal piece. And give it a little tug. And a lot of times when you do that, you'll realize you missed the metal. When you give it that tug, it'll pull out. If it does that, make sure you cut that butt connector off and start a new one. Okay, so I've completed the butt splice connections, and I cut off this little piece of extra covering here to kind of bring the covering back, and the goal of just making that just as tight of a profile as we can make it. Okay, so I got all the butt connections, butt splices put together. At this point, you want to take your end and test it. So I just hooked up our hedge trimmer, ran it, made sure it was all getting power all the way through. So now we can take our splice tape, start at the end. And start running our splice tape now. It's got this blue tape on it that just protects this adhesive side. So just pull it off as you go around. And you want to overlap it just a little bit, at least about a 1/4 inch or so as you're pulling it around. Okay guys, that's it. You've prepared it. Time to go back to work. Make the wife happy. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll have more coming down the road.